Hello, everybody. I'm Susanna DeBaca. I'm the president of Business Publications Corporation and the publisher of DSM Magazine. And I want to welcome you to our Lifting the Veil series on the mental health effects of COVID-19 called Life Interrupted. DSM Magazine has long been committed to the community and very interested in mental health. And about 4 years ago, we created a publication called Lifting the Veil in reference to the need to reduce stigma. Last year, we added an event, which was a panel of experts, and we planned the same agenda for 2020. But then the pandemic happened. We quickly realized that there was a need to shine a light on how this situation will have short and long-term impact on the community. And this series came together very quickly, thanks to our team and to a terrific slate of sponsors. Before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to the DSM team who made this happen. Christine Riccelli, Larry Erickson, Luke Manderfeld, Sean Rakina, Emily Schultz, Yolanda Crystal, Rebecca Zoot, Jordan Croft, and Rochelle Kelberg. Luke is helping manage our video today. We're all getting pretty used to Zoom, but I hope you'll bear with us if we experience any technical challenges today. I also want to thank our sponsors for making this event possible. Our presenting sponsor is Delta Dental of Iowa. Our supporting sponsors are United Way, Clive Behavioral Health, which is a partnership with Mercy One, and our sustaining sponsors are Mid-Iowa Health Foundation, Employee Family Resources, Make It Okay, UCS Healthcare, and Des Moines University. Today, we're going to be focusing on small business. Every day, we read and hear about Iowa's small businesses across all industries struggling to survive during closures, social distancing, and amid health concerns. Our goal today is to open up the conversation, to share thoughts, and to provide some hope and ideas. And we are going to be talking to a terrific slate of experts who can help. Here's how the program's going to work today. I'll share a video, I'll introduce our speakers, and then I'll start the panel. At the end, if we have time, I'll open it up for questions from the audience. I've received many questions from registrants, and I've integrated them where I could. If you want to use the chat function, to submit questions, you are welcome to do that, and we'll try to add those on at the end. Today, our panelists are experts from the mental health field and also some small business owners themselves. But first, we'd like to hear from a number of small business owners in this video.
I own a chiropractic office and Carrie owns a hair salon.
The library director at the Waukee Public Library.
I do everything from veterans outreach, workforce development, government relations, to large-scale event production.
Just the decrease in foot traffic. We're seeing probably only like 30–40% of what we typically see at this time.
Without having any major gatherings around the country, I don't know where I'm going to find an opportunity to use some of these skills I have.
Having to make decisions about employees and the entire community that may affect their health negatively. That isn't something I had to deal with before, nor ever expected to.
When this crisis began, I basically had to transition overnight from operating face-to-face with my clients to learning new digital platforms. When courts were basically shut down, when the jail shut down to outside visitors.
I have contingency plans for tornadoes or other natural disasters, but I've never anticipated a pandemic or being closed to the public long term.
The situation is unpredictable. You don't know what's going on tomorrow, and the challenge is unknown.
Girls rent from my salon, and I've had one girl already say she's not able to renew the lease.
But as an immigrant myself, there's unknowns. I may not get green card. I may not be able to immigrant to US. So those kind of things are unknowns, and we all know how to deal with unknowns. So there's no difference, and you just start with what you can do today.
Well, it's very clear from the people we interviewed in the video that there are numerous challenges for small businesses. And I love the quote at the end, who is from one of our panelists. You just start with what you can do today. Let me introduce our esteemed group of panelists. Brianna Young is a licensed mental health counselor, currently supervisor at the Mercy One Des Moines Behavioral Healthcare Clinic and Mercy One Des Moines Psychiatry and Residency Clinic. She's a certified trauma-focused cognitive behavioral health specialist, and she has an emphasis on anxiety issues related to trauma surrounding mild to severe life transition stressors and employment issues, very relevant to today's discussion. Next, we welcome Ron Berg, who is the CEO of Prelude Behavioral Services, a position that he's held since 2011. Prelude currently has operations in the Iowa City and Des Moines areas, employing 145 employees and serving 4,500 individuals in treatment services each year. Welcome, Ron. Next, we have Christina Moffett. Christina has been the owner of Cream Cupcake and Dessert for 6 years, and at the same time is the Director of Small Business Resources for the Greater Des Moines Partnership. Part of Christina's role there is to help small businesses and entrepreneurs be as strong as they can through connections to resources and programming. Next up, we have Ying Sa. Ying is the founder and principal certified public accountant at Community CPA, a firm that she started. They provide tax, audit, accounting, business consultations, and IT solutions to businesses and individuals across the United States, Canada, and around the world. Ying was born in Beijing, China, before becoming a citizen of Canada and then the United States. Many of her clients are small businesses, and she is recognized as a leader within the immigrant community. And finally, we have Deirdre DeGier. She is the owner of Calayo Enterprises and is with the Financial Empowerment Center at DMAC. In 2008, Deirdre found her affinity for working with small businesses and building relationships across the community, and now she works to provide entrepreneurs affordable marketing tools and business strategies. So welcome to all of our panelists, and thank you so much for being here. So to start out with, I'm going to ask all of our panelists one sort of I went too fast. And last but not least, I would like to welcome Delta Dental of Iowa, who is our presenting sponsor. Delta Dental has been improving the health and smiles of Iowans for over 50 years. Delta Dental provides dental and vision benefits to more than 1.2 million Iowans. And since 2002, Delta Dental has invested more than $42 million to improve oral health and overall health of Iowans. Most recently, Delta Dental and its foundation committed up to $10.5 million in COVID-19 relief funds. And I'd like to welcome April Schmaltz, who's the director at Delta Dental of Iowa, to say a few words. April?
Thank you so much, Susanna. Good afternoon, everyone. As she mentioned, my name is April Schmaltz. I am the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Sales for Delta Dental of Iowa. And as the COVID-19 outbreak dramatically altered our daily lives over the last few months, organizations in Iowa and around the country moved quickly to assess how to protect one another and how we could lend a hand to our neighbors in need. I am very fortunate to work for an organization like Delta Dental, who offers dental and vision benefits to nearly 3,600 Iowa organizations. As a health and wellness company, we understand not only the importance of physical health, but also emotional well-being. This is why we are so pleased to support the Lifting the Veil series and the important message it brings to Iowans during this time. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you, April, and thank you very much to Delta Dental of Iowa. And now, as I started to say, I will begin to ask all of our panelists the same question, which is, what are the biggest mental health challenges posed to small business owners or employees by the coronavirus? And we'll go ahead and start with Brianna.
Hi, Susanna. Thanks. Thanks for the Lifting the Veil series. We're excited as Iowans to be able to see and hear this. One of the biggest mental health challenges posed to small business in my mind is that everyone responds so differently. Owners and employees have to be very self-aware yet sensitive to those around them. There's a lot, due to the COVID epidemic, a lot of folks are experiencing grief-like symptoms due to the job loss, the business closures, or any other personal or professional endeavors that they're struggling with. There is no normal response or timeline to recovery through this. Again, emotions and situations, we just don't know the end of all of this. While some people have worked through the shocked phase of COVID and, oh my goodness, we have to close everything and we don't know when the end is in sight, there's still a lot of folks that are still working through the denial, bargaining, guilt, anger, or even depression side of things. While there are still some that have successfully managed through the stress and anxiety related to the situations around them. So one of the biggest mental health challenges to small business owners and employees is trying to understand and respect the different responses that one another are going through, including self-awareness of their own, to be able to relate and respond positively and empathetically to those around them.
Thank you. Ron Berg, what are your feelings about how the pandemic has affected small businesses?
Yes, so what I'm seeing here personally and other people that I talk with, the challenges are really focused for me about the change and the need to manage the change. Change is stressful, it can be difficult in good times and when it's well planned out. But in this situation, we've had change forced upon us that we did not want, or we definitely did not want, of course. And then added to that is the lack of resources or the lack of answers to so many questions that make it difficult to monitor the change. And then as we start to get comfortable and think that we've got everything adjusted, changed our business model, changed our resources and how we're responding, now we're moving into this next phase where we're going to begin reopening, and that will require yet another set of change for us to manage. So I just see that as one of the real challenges, both for owners and managers in the organizations as well as the employees, is having them go through multiple changes without any history or experience related to this type of event to draw on to help guide us through the change.
Thank you, Ron. Christina, you are a small business owner as well as advising small businesses. What do you think are the biggest mental health challenges as a result of COVID-19?
Yes, thanks for having me today. I think that a lot of people don't realize that people who have a brick and mortar location or leases for their businesses, they are personally guaranteed on those. So if you have a small business loan out, your home is usually used as collateral against that loan. If you have vendors that you're using, a lot of times when you sign up to get credit with them, you are personally guaranteeing that you will still be able to pay that if your business does not survive. And what weighs on them is they leave these businesses that they are, again, having no normal, as the first two said, going home and to their home that is tied to their business, and they just can't really escape or catch a mental break right now. Everything is constantly tied together. Everything's weighing in the back of their head of how they're going to provide for their family, how they're going to provide for their employees. And I feel like they constantly are living that trauma every day because there is no normal. It doesn't feel like the trauma has ended yet for them. And I have people telling me kind of what Ron said, of the reopening scares them even more. Of people coming in, is the infection going to spread again? Are they going to be shut down with no notice again? And that fear, unfortunately, that a lot of people are living in just continually haunts them.
Ying, you are also a small business owner and working with many small business owners. We've heard some themes here, but what do you see as the biggest mental health challenges posed to small businesses right now?
In my quarter, and I deal with a lot of immigrant business owners, and the one thing I notice is that because of the upbringing, and some of those people, they risking their life, came to United States to start a life here. So they relatively have a much stronger mental ability to deal with uncertainties. And you see those clients, very often in my quarter. However, I know unpredictable future and short term, can be seen as a long term, because we can talk about 2 years being short, but in reality, every day, 24 hours for 2 years, that's a very long time. But I continue to see that, to tell people the story about how immigrant business owners might have a little different take to the surroundings, to the downside of the economy. So that may give some hope to other people that, it is just a situation we are in, and it is short term after all, because we don't even remember 2008 and how that recession hit everybody, how we felt the pain. It goes by so fast. So I think the mental challenges is that to self-grow your toughness and really deal with, I go back to say that again, deal with today and just deal with what you have right in front of you. And that's the way to get through. And I tell every client of mine the same thing. Hopefully they come through it. Yeah.
Thank you. Deidre, what about from your perspective?
Just in hearing everyone, there's obviously some true consistent themes, but I think about just the nature of the small business owner. One of my mentors who's also an entrepreneur, and I'm going to clean this up a little bit because it's 12:15 in the afternoon. But he says, if you're going to work for any crazy person, there was another word there, it might as well be yourself. And so when I think about the nature of the small business owner, they're used to the weight of their business being on their shoulders and their shoulders alone. And now the weight of their business is on their shoulders, but not only that, the weight of this COVID crisis is also on their shoulders. And so they don't have a board of directors telling them how to figure this thing out. They don't have, a team of folks always, in their ear telling them how to figure things out. They're figuring it out at their kitchen tables or in the back office. And I think the biggest challenge that we're seeing right now is that, they're unclear of what the future looks like. They're unclear of how to handle it because they're so used to handling it on their own. And I think if we can do whatever we can to ensure that they're not on their own, that the community is wrapping their arms around them in so many different types of ways with so many different types of resources, it's going to move our businesses a lot farther. But we have, as a community, have to take that step to really connect with them, to meet them where they're at, because they're accustomed to being in their own spaces every single day, doing business as usual every single day, and all of that is interrupted right now.
Great points. I'm hearing a lot about uncertainty, trauma, isolation. That leads very well into my second round of questions. And I'd like to ask Brianna, how can employers or owners support their employees and their families when they're feeling stressed themselves?
Sure. It's important to recognize that employees are experiencing a potential mood change in response to COVID. They themselves, the business owner, may even be experiencing their own mood change. They need to understand that there's going to be a level of fear and worry and anxiety around everything until we have definitive proof that public safety is resolved. If an employee or family member doesn't seem to be acting themselves, they may not be their normal, happy, bubbly self that they once were. It's important to kind of communicate. Don't criticize or penalize that individual, but work on increasing your empathetic response. Praise when possible, encourage routine, offer flexibility in your work or life schedules in order to better help those individuals that may be experiencing greater levels of mental health struggles throughout the COVID epidemic, and even moving forward as we continue to reopen and hopefully begin to calm some of those fears that are overtaking us.
Very helpful. Thank you, Brianna. Now, Ron, let me ask you this question. What are the implications of remote work or the social distancing for small business owners and employees?
Yeah, what I have noticed, I guess, primarily is that the relationships and the communications that were available to me when we were face-to-face are obviously gone. And it's not the same to replace those via telehealth communication. So being able to have that informal conversation with a coworker or being in a social network or among my peers, those opportunities for support and brainstorming and finding solutions are not as accessible as they were prior to being isolated from one another. So I think that's one of the biggest implications that I have seen, just not having those same type of support networks or having to access them differently than what I would have previously.
Thank you. Christina, the next question is for you. You touched on this a little bit before, but how does the high level of business uncertainty in the pandemic affect small business owners or employees?
Yeah, so I think it's something that is constantly on their mind. It is weighing on them at all times. The one thing that I think is important is that people talk to their employees. Some of the greatest ideas we've had have come from our employees. Again, I mentioned nothing's normal, so you can't bank on your revenue coming in the same way it did before. And the employees are more bought in, and I think feel more at peace when you're talking to them openly about what's happening and what you see. I've also really tried to make it a point with my employees to stand with them, and we have lunch and we chat about things that we're watching on TV to put our minds into something that is normal. That's the only thing that we can really point to, as every day brings new challenges, but creativity has also been very high and being able to do new things. But I think it's really important that you talk to your employees about the uncertainty, that you don't try to cover it up, that you're honest with them and ask them for open feedback on how to improve things.
Thank you. Great insights. Ying, you are dealing with clients who may speak English as a second language or who have immigration issues. How does these factors compound stress?
So not speaking English and especially not reading the documentations that in front of you, that's almost like you're walking in the darkness and not sure what's in front of you. So that obviously is a stressful situation for a lot of people who doesn't speak English here. And in the very beginning of the pandemic, the state didn't have a multiple language put in place. So there's literally, there are people don't even know why things was closing. So adding stress is a given. And I just think that in this near future, when we implementing community help or anything that related to human beings, regardless they speak English or not, and we wish that everybody speak good English, but the reality is that some immigrants who comes here just doesn't. And as long as we provide those access and be able to help them, our firm, and we really try to be that, to help that a little fragment of the society who come to us don't speak English, and we help them to speak it. We help them to read it. So as much as stress we can eliminate, but the stress is there, and it is obviously a thing that cannot be openly expressed because they don't speak English, so they cannot yell as fast or as loud as they want. So it really is us, you and me, and this panel voice that concern, so we get the language delivered, that meaning delivered, so we can have coherent community moving forward and past COVID-19.
Very helpful. Thank you, Ying. Deidre, what are some strategies that small businesses can use right now to gain a sense of control and alleviate stress?
You know, the biggest thing that I can think of for business owners is to bounce ideas off of somebody. You know, I reiterate the part about them not being in this alone. I think it just goes the lengths to connect with someone that understands small businesses, that understands some strategies that can be incorporated for you to innovate your business during this process and still make money and still improve. I mean, we're working with small business owners right now that are improving their credit scores in the midst of a pandemic. They're saving in the midst of a pandemic. They're eliminating waste in the midst of a pandemic. And so there is somewhat of a silver lining in this process. But I think the first step is to know that you're not in this on this your own, that there are resources out there for you, whether you're going to Iowa Center, whether you're going to the Des Moines Partnership with Christina, whether you're going to Iowa Legal Aid Financial Empowerment Center. There are resources out there, whether you're tuning into a webinar with Ying to talk about PPP. I mean, I know it's frightening to face the facts sometimes, but man, what we're seeing is that when business owners are facing the facts, coming to terms with what this new reality looks like, that they're going the lengths. They're actually getting a lot more motivated to innovate and to strengthen the business.
Great points. I want to remind everybody that this is the fourth in a panel of 6 discussions about life interrupted by COVID-19. Next Friday, we're going to look at workplace interrupted, a little bit more of an extension of small business, I think relevant, but also some larger workplaces. And then our final panel is going to be on equity and inclusion interrupted. A lot of research has shown that pandemics exacerbate existing inequities. And we're very interested in exploring how COVID-19 is impacting some of our most vulnerable populations. That's Friday, June 5th. So we hope that you will tune in and you'll tell your friends about these remaining panels. You can register the same way you did for this panel at dsmmagazine.com/liftingtheveil-2020. We'd also like to remind you and invite you to subscribe to DSM newsletters. These are free. We have DSM Weekly, Weekend. We have a newsletter that just launched for IA statewide. We call it our love letter to Iowa. We encourage you to subscribe to DSM Magazine, which is our print edition. And then as part of our Lifting the Veil series, our normal series, we have scheduled on November 19th another panel discussion, and we hope you'll save the date and we'll tell you more about that. So that was my little commercial break. And now we are happy to take questions from the audience if you'd like to chat them in. Otherwise, I've got some additional questions that I will ask the panel, but I encourage you to chat whatever you'd like here if you have questions. So the first question I'll ask all of the different panelists to answer is what resources are available for small business owners and entrepreneurs who are struggling. But our panelists have offered some helpful resources. And I think that we have a slide that we can show you. But I'll leave this up and then I'll call on each of the panelists. If you guys want to call out a resource from your point of view, that you think might be particularly helpful either on this list or somewhere else. So Brianna, you suggested some of these. Any that you want to call out or recommend?
Sure. I think, the state of Iowa, there's numerous resources, and it's just important that folks reach out anywhere and any way they can if they have any needs. Most counseling organizations are conducting telehealth options right now and will continue to do so as long as insurance dictates that's possible. One of the biggest and most important things, especially for folks that may be underinsured, because specialty visits can cost a lot, is the idea that your primary care provider is a great launching block. On the list of resources, Access to Health, there's a phone number there. They can assist in finding a primary care provider if you don't already have one, but they can get you started on meds. They can help get you connections to mental health counselors if you're not aware of any. And finally, I know it sounds too simple to be true, but honestly, a quick Google search sometimes can be a great launching block for folks to find resources that are close to home if maybe one of these resources listed here doesn't quite fit with them or meet their needs. So reach out if you have anything. These are all great resources, but it is not exclusive by any means.
Great. Ron, any resources that you want to call out? And it's fine if you want to talk about your own organization.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so Prelude Behavioral Services, our core product is substance use treatment, which also includes gambling treatment and prevention as well. So we are available, the phone number there locally in Des Moines. That number is answered 24 hours a day if you want to get connected with one of our staff. I also want to point to the Your Life Iowa website. That is a combination of mental health services in the state, substance abuse services, and then also gambling services, in addition to suicide prevention and a crisis line. So it really brings several different issues together in one site. And it's helpful in that you can get information if all you want to do is read and inform yourself, or if you want to find a local provider, there is access to doing that as well. It will connect you up with mental health services through local mental health regions that are throughout the state. And all of these services have government funding and support, so they would identify resources for people that don't have health insurance, who need some mental health services or substance use services. So it's a great resource, again, for those that don't have some of the insurance coverage that would be required with other providers.
Terrific. Christina, any resources that you would like to suggest?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things small businesses need to do is they need to be able to talk through what's happening with their business. The business is not probably going to look the same coming through this pandemic. And you have 3 great resources. I'm happy to help. Ying's amazing. She has done classes with us. And Deidre also has amazing resources. The partnership has a COVID page specifically for small business. And we are posting a lot of the events through other organizations on that page. It's kind of a catch-all landing page right now. But I personally am doing a lot of Zoom calls trying to help businesses pivot. I know everybody's using that word, but that's the reality of what's coming, is being able to pivot, being able to look at cash flows. I'm sure Ying can touch on that a little bit more, making sure that they're making smart decisions with the staff, with the PPP, if they've received any grants. All of that's really critical right now. Myself, I will throw out that I have great mentors, and I've talked to them almost daily since this has happened. It's definitely a give and take. It's just comforting to talk to somebody just to say, hey, this is what I'm going through, and have them confirm and just talk through it. I think the longer you hold it in, the longer it festers. And again, I think talking to your employees, letting them know what's happening and getting their feedback is important too.
That's terrific. Ying, are there resources you'd like to suggest to our listeners?
Sure. I think the listeners, if you just don't remember any of the name and you just write down our each individual names, and you can find all of us on the internet, and you can ask us questions, we would help you. And at CommuniCP at my firm, I actually have 3 webinars on the weekly basis, one in Chinese, that's on Monday, one in Vietnamese, that's on Wednesday, and then one in Spanish, that's on Friday. Every week, we talk about everything is new on the federal and the state grant and loan and PPP side of business. So to help you get that additional cash flow that you needed if you're a small business owner. And I think the resources is really resides in you. You are the one looking out to find those resources. I know you will find it. We're not short of that. And I hope you will enjoy those multi-language speaking webinars Community CPA has. And I myself, I do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday to update on different things, and at 3 o'clock. So you can go to our website to look into that, communitycpa.com.
Terrific. And Deirdre, I'd love for you to talk about the resources, but then there was also a chat question about whether you could share a little bit more about the new role you're performing for Polk County. So maybe tie those two together.
Of course. So the new role at Polk County is really around personal finances. Polk County has invested a great deal of resources to ensure that every individual in Polk County has access to a financial coach. As Christina mentioned earlier, many of our small businesses, their small business is tied to their personal finances. And so while they're trying to juggle the task of keeping the business afloat, they also have to manage their own personal household and the funds that are coming in there, which present another element of challenges. And so through the Polk County work, we are providing personal financial coaching. We have certified coaches that are working with people on negotiating with creditors. They're working with folks on creating a realistic spending plan during the midst of COVID. They're working with folks on cutting the fat as it relates to their spending plan. And again, it's just another set of eyes on your plan. I'm sure you already have it figured out, or you got some sort of a framework there, but it's always good to just hear another perspective, or perhaps you haven't gotten it figured out. They'll meet you there too. And these are folks that are very, very well experienced in the work that they do. And they're also helping people find supplemental services. You know, we've got folks that are applying for government-backed services that they've never done that before. And our coaches are walking down that road with them. But I think that the other part is that I want to echo is that we're talking about mental health and small businesses. And I want to underscore the importance. I so easily flock to the technical aspect of small business ownership. But because we're having this conversation, I think it's important to reiterate the fact that if you are not well as a small business owner, your business won't be well. And so those resources that were up there that give you the opportunity to talk to somebody that has nothing to do with small businesses, but just about that's invested in your mental health. I mean, that's a treasure that money cannot buy. And I am urging each and every one of you all to just chat with someone, just to make sure that you're good here, because we can sometimes develop habits to deal with things that aren't necessarily healthy for us. And you know, having a good mental health provider is always helpful.
I love that, Deirdre. I'm writing that one down of if you are not well, your business cannot be well. That's a good quote to pull. And I want to remind everybody, or at least I guess highlight, Jim Hayes from the Pastoral Counseling Center chatted in that the Des Moines Pastoral Counseling Center is happy to help, and you might note their website here, but that's a fantastic resource available to everybody in our community. And Heather Jones is writing in empowermoney.org is the site there. Yeah, so lots of
That's where you can go and schedule an appointment, and it's free. There's no haggling, there's no products associated with it. It's just you, your coach, and we're talking about your goals, and you all take it from there.
Great. So let me ask a question to Brianna and Ron. What do businesses need to know if they're seeking mental health treatment for themselves or their families or staff? And in particular, maybe around telehealth right now, which is becoming much more common. Brianna, any insights on that?
Sure. It's the important things to know about seeking mental health treatment is it's available anywhere and everywhere. And it's also, you're not bound to the first person you talk to. A therapeutic relationship takes a little bit of time to build. And I know that everybody with their fear and their anxieties really wants some solutions fast. But if you're not jiving with the first person that maybe you meet with, try another one. It's like meeting a friend. It's like meeting a new person. Your personalities have to match in order for there to be successful work that'll happen, and for you to trust that person and grow in whatever your goals might be. It's also incredibly important to recognize that it's okay to not be okay right now. I know that's a phrase that's being used quite often, but it truly is okay to not be okay. If you need to ask for help, whether it's from a professional, a friend, a family member, due to financial situation, social, emotional, there's no shame in that. It feels like there might be, but truly one thing everybody I feel like has learned throughout this whole epidemic and pandemic is an empathetic response. I think we've learned to put ourselves in other folks' shoes and be able to understand where somebody is at, no matter what our own personal experiences are. So please reach out, even if you just need a couple times to chat with someone and just get yourself back on the right path. Reach out. There's so much help out there. Take a screenshot of that list, do a Google search, whatever you need. There are resources out there, and don't let it get too far out of control so that you feel like there's no way back. Reach out and folks will put you right back on the same path.
Terrific advice. Ron, what about from your perspective?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to build on something Brianna commented on earlier or alluded to, and that is that everybody will have their own reactions to what's going on. There's no right way or wrong way. There's just our own way of reacting. So I think probably every employer can look at their employee group and identify employees that are on different ends of the continuum, some being very comfortable being in the office, being out and not feeling threatened by the virus, and then other people on the other end of the continuum where they're very fearful of the virus. So that's just one example of the range of responses. So in terms of how to be helpful, recognize that everybody's going to respond in their own way. And then again, not be judgmental about that, but be supportive and listening about that. I also just wanted to mention two other things just very quickly. People's reaction is going to change and alter over time as we learn more and we get confronted with new information. So what you believe to be true today about yourself or your employees, expect that to change as we get further through this. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention, if you're concerned about either a family member or an employee who may be using substances inappropriately, it's important that you go ahead and talk with that person about that, express your concerns, but make sure that you can do that in a way that is not coming from a judgmental perspective, but one of being concerned and wanting to be supportive. And if you want some help in how to talk with someone you're concerned about, one of the mental health counselors, certainly Prelude counselors, can help with that as well.
Really, really good advice. You touched on how things are going to be changing. So my next question is for Christina, and then I'll ask others to chime in as well. We've been isolated. Now we're reopening. That's completely different as well. I know in your own shop, you're contemplating that. Can you talk a little bit about some of the stressors around reopening and maybe some helpful tips, and then we'll ask others as well.
Sure. So people are having to make the decision right now to reopen. As we know, the governor has pretty much reopened everything at 50%, but most of these businesses were not planned to operate on 50% capacity. And so that decision constantly weighs in the back of a restaurant owner's mind, is that if they were to open up and they're still not making their bills, but they open up the liability for their employees to potentially get sick, or somebody claim they got sick, that's a whole different level of stress that comes with that. When you look at the 6 feet spacing, a lot of places, such as my own, it does not even allow us to meet 50% occupancy. It's literally one table on each side of our front door. So do we have somebody stand there watching to make sure that table's cleaned? If anybody touches it, all of that is now a liability to customers coming in. You have to keep everything clean to a different level. They advise on having somebody just kind of be that person to watch all of that. But, you know, I'm going to throw it back to what I said earlier, is that businesses are not going to look the same coming out of this. Procedures are going to be different. Products may be different. The way you operate, you might always do curbside delivery now because customers really like that. They like not getting out of their car and meeting them curbside. So making sure that you're kind of analyzing all that, especially into cash flow. I'm sure Ying would echo that, making sure it financially works for your business as you look at new ways of doing that. But I do feel like a lot of small business owners are more stressed about opening than they were when the initial pandemic hit. I think they were more in shock, and they've kind of processed a little bit of that shock, but the stress of their liability of reopening, I think, is weighing on them very heavily at this time.
Ying, do you want to answer that same question about some of the new stressors around reopening?
Yeah, reopening, what I heard from quite a few of my clients, they're actually talking about it won't be able to even get people to work, even if they want to reopening. And some of the employees were on the unemployment benefit. Apparently, this is not even one client. Quite a few of them commented that the unemployment benefit was better than the folks who actually would work. So obviously, they're losing those people. So reopening stressor for the employer is people would not want to come back to work out of the fear. So that apparently right now I don't even have an answer for that, because every time I think of reopening, in my heart I can hear my staff talking about what you do to make us safe. You know, it is a fair question, and I don't think we're even ready to reopen, even if the world is open, because I don't really have a solution to guarantee that my staff come back and they will be safe and sound.
I think that's a huge issue, Ying. And Deidre, because you're counseling small businesses, interested in your thoughts on that same question about reopening. What new stressors and any advice?
Sure. I mean, reopening now for so many of our disadvantaged businesses and businesses of color, it's almost like a startup again, because they're being required to do certain things for the sake of safety. But that means that they have to purchase things in order to adhere to these safety measures. And without having been in business for over 60 days, where's their capital coming from? If they weren't fortunate enough to get any of the funds that were available to supplement business, where's that going to come from? And so reopening for a lot of folks at this point in time, they're being forced right now to figure out, okay, do I open or do I close, or do I close indefinitely? The woman who was on the video, she was the owner of a salon, and they have the nature of being in a salon is operating on efficiency, being able to do multiple things at once on multiple folks at once. You can no longer do that. And so their profit margins are literally being slashed because of the new regulations. And it's like, how do they figure out how to ship? Do they raise their prices? Do they offer different things? And so it's a tremendous challenge. It's a tremendous challenge. And I think that it depends on each and every business owner to figure that out with their advisors on what they do. There is literally no similar approach that every business owner can take on, besides curbside delivery, but you can't get your hair done on the curb, unfortunately.
Well, that's perhaps an entirely new business, but you never know. So innovation was, I think, a theme we've heard here too, about quickly pivoting, there's that word again, and trying to figure out, if there's some new things that can be done. So the last question before we do a wrap is, what positives might actually come out of this situation for small business owners? And Ying, I'll start with you.
Sure. I always sort of close my webinars every week with one saying: the true entrepreneurs has the ability to turn problems into opportunities. So this is what I keep on telling people. There will be business closing for sure, but there will also be so many of them opening. If you are open-minded, really focus on the future, and forget about the sorrows, the sad, the loss, and just really trying to focus on a new endeavor in the future, you'll make it. That's what I would give to all of my small business clients and people who are listening. Turn your problems into opportunities.
Fantastic. Christina, you talked a little bit about changing and innovation. What are your thoughts on positives that might come out of this?
I think hands down, one of my favorite things that has already come out of this is watching businesses be able to be creative again. You know, a lot of times we get used to what's working, the profit on that, but I know personally at the shop, we have been able to team with other small businesses in town to bring unique products. Specifically right out of the gate, I teamed with 3 other bakeries that I highly, highly respect in this town that operate out of their home, that I knew they had lost all their wedding income, and said, come do a baker's box with me. I want to be able to showcase you. And it was wildly successful. We absolutely enjoyed that. I love their craft. We all put something that we highly value in there. And we've done that several other times now with other small businesses we wouldn't normally be able to partner with, like East Village Spa on Mother's Day and Vanity and Glamour. Like, we did a box with all these people. I just really enjoyed seeing the small businesses be creative and not just kind of flounder. They've been able to run as fast as they can with new ideas. My team delivered Easter eggs, not something we normally do, but we knew that we needed to get income in the door. And that is something I really think is positive coming out of this, is the new products you'll see, the new partnerships you'll see, but also kind of turning back into that look local again, coming back to those small businesses that are in your neighborhood and supporting them as you see the big chains and things go down. Local has always been important, and hopefully that message remains strong and we see the small businesses be able to do more work together.
So we have about 5 minutes left, and so I'd love for each one of the panelists to leave us with a parting shot, maybe a piece of advice or just insights from the panel today. And so Brianna, maybe 30 seconds to a minute of your parting wisdom.
I think the parting wisdom is you got this. Keep working, keep doing you, use these setbacks as growth opportunities. No matter what hardship you may have just experienced, grow from it. Don't get stuck. Grow, learn, grow, reach out for help if you need help with growth. If you don't, fly away with any ideas, any new opportunities, anything that you can do. You got this.
Ron, what about you? Parting shots.
Yeah, I would just say make sure you're taking care of yourself. Monitor your diet, monitor your alcohol intake, and get some exercise. Park at the end of the block instead of right in front of the door. Just get some steps in the day. And I agree with Brandon, you've got this, and you will be fine. So just take care of those stressors: diet, exercise, and eating. So thank you.
Christina, any advice?
Yeah, I would just say that you're not alone. Talk to other business owners, but most importantly, I've said it a couple times today, talk to your team. Your team that's showing up every day, if you are working, even if it's 50%, they want to be there. They've shown they want to be there. Talk to them about innovation, ideas. Talk to them about what's happening in their life. Some of these employees live by themselves. They're not seeing anybody except for when they come in. So talk to your team, be open about what's happening, but sometimes the best ideas don't come from the leader. The leader is the one that supports the team to move them forward.
Ying, what is your final advice to us?
There is a will, there is a way. 有志者事竟成. and you got it.
Excellent. And Deidre, what about you? What are your final thoughts?
You know, I realize that so many folks are really challenged during this time, and it's very hard to even hear people speak positively. And it makes us feel even worse sometimes. But, you know, there's this quote that I live and breathe by, which is hard work guarantees nothing, but without it, we don't stand a chance. And so I want our small businesses to stand a chance. I really want us to. And as hard as you can work during this process, put it all out there, leave nothing at the end, and just watch your business bloom in the process.
Well, I want to say thank you again to all of our panelists. Your insights were so helpful, so hopeful. And I also want to thank our sponsors. A very special thanks to Delta Dental of Iowa, who is our presenting sponsor, to our supporting sponsors, United Way of Central Iowa and Clive Behavioral Health, which is a partnership with Mercy One, and our sustaining sponsors, Mid-Iowa Health Foundation, Employee and Family Resources, UCS Healthcare, and Des Moines University. I want to thank everybody who tuned in. Thank you so much for caring about mental health, and thank you for working to lift the veil. That concludes our program. Have a wonderful long weekend. Thank you, everybody.